Want you to remind you that for your safety and the safety of others, self-choice screening is required for every person.
Erica, pull your mask up, please.
We do follow all Tarrant County public health guidelines as well as all CDC requirements. We're glad you're here this morning. I hope all of you have a great Friday here at AHS.
It is Friday. Okay, so what have I mentioned that seems to be tied into not necessarily all, but most mass extinctions? What is it that no. What Hayden? What is it that triggers that die-off? What normally occurs on this planet for that to happen? No. The glaciations normally promote flourishing. So what would be an anti-ice age? No, not. Yeah, what causes that? What traps the Earth's heat and doesn't let it to escape? What emits CO2? No. Well, I mean, yes, but that's not what I'm looking for. There we go, volcanic activity. Okay, now sometimes that can be triggered by, I heard meteor. I didn't hear the volcano part. I only heard the meteor part. I apologize. But yes, bless you. Pull your mask up as you're sneezing and spraying the entire room. That's not good. All right, so we mentioned the Permian Triassic extinction towards the end of yesterday, and we're going to talk about it again on Monday. This was the mother of all extinctions. It had the largest die-off of all of the known mass extinctions, at least as far back as we can record. And in some of the stuff that we mentioned yesterday, it's recorded specifically in the Chinese shield that by radioisotope dating the uranium and the lead and the zirconia, or the zirconia that we talked about yesterday, we date it back to 251 million years ago. This is the same time that Pangea started to literally tear itself in half. This marks the boundary between two eras, the Paleozoic, which was everything that we've been talking about so far. Well, we also talked about Precambrian for a brief period of time. And then the Mesozoic, which was the age of the dinosaurs. This is the actual split in between them. And on Monday, we will talk about a different split, which is the one that you guys are the most familiar with, the one that killed off the dinosaurs, that goes between the Mesozoic era, the end of the Cretaceous, and the Cenozoic area, which is the rise of the age of the mammals. We did have mammals, the dinosaurs. It's just, it took the killing off of the bulk of those reptiles to allow mammals to just take over. Just like it took killing off the bulk of the mammal-like reptiles in order to allow the dinosaurs to flourish after the Permian extinction. If it didn't happen, there's a good chance that we would not have had the dinosaurs, because the mammalian-like reptiles that ended up turning into mammals were actually more advanced. It's just that the bulk of them died off, with the exception of one specific one. And I can't remember if I talk about that in this, but I know I will on Monday if I have not. The span of the actual dying, okay, the length of this extinction is longer than most others. So that means that instead of it just being brutal death immediately, you had a gradual dying off of species that would accelerate and accelerate and accelerate until the end. It didn't just all happen at once. It was a sequence. It was a sequence of events that started with that volcanic activity, which was the rifting of Pangea, about 250 million years ago, give or take. Where we find most of the fossils from this extinction are along the edges of Pangea, okay, where water from the Panthalassan Sea joined the shore, specifically for the aquatic life. And it was they were hit the hardest. The thing that's interesting about this extinction is this was the first time in geologic history that the bulk of the planet was actually populated by some type of life form. Because it wasn't too far before the Permian where things were still right along the edges of the water, or before that, when you talk about the Ordovician, before that particular mass extinction, everything was still in the ocean itself. 96% of the things that were aquatic, like marine aquatic, not like necessarily amphibians that could go back and forth on land, they were destroyed. No, but the water was poisoned towards the end of the Permian. Like, the land animals weren't so heavily affected because water gets filtered by the ground. You do not know that. Water that comes up from the ground in general is cleaner than just water that is stagnant and sitting there. I don't know how many of you have gone like camping and hiking like way out in the middle of nowhere. The water that's coming off the waterfalls has been filtered much better than just the pond water that you might be fishing in. I'm not saying you know just go and like drink every bit of water that you see. It's a really good way to get all different kinds of gut bacteria problems. No, you don't want on the nasties that are out there. So where almost all of the marine animals that are very sensitive, their tissue is much more delicate to toxins than terrestrial animals are. Only 2/3 of your land animals, and yes, some plant species went out. Also, but your plant species, as long as they weren't where the land turned to desert, which happens through the bulk of our planet, because they brought the water up through the roots, it was filtered by the ground itself. So as long as they could still pull water from deep in the earth, your vascular plants, most of them actually survived in some way, shape, or form. The things that were tied to the ocean floor that were called sessile, they can't just swim away, like they're stuck, they were completely devastated. The things that had the ability to swim or move, well, a lot of them died too, but at least a few of them could survive so that it could propagate the species after the end of its extinction. But what died? Trilobites are gone.
Dinosaurs.
No, there weren't no dinosaurs yet. Not like what you think of. They actually existed because of this extinction. I said, if it wasn't for the Permian extinction, they probably would not have developed, at least not in the numbers and the different variations of the species, the types of dinosaurs that occurred in the Mesozoic. Okay, so it says on your thing, it's got like what percentage died off and what did it turn into. So the pictures that I'm going to pop up are the descendants of the ones that have the percentages down on the bottom. The blastoids, all gone. Let me show you what they look like. Okay, so these blastoids, they completely and totally wiped out. The core coral reefs, they had already collapsed once after the Devonian. Okay, so now we had this coral reef system trying to come back. Well, it got destroyed again. So this image up here shows you basically the different types of coral and this particular species as well. It looks similar to the ocean floor that we have now, but those particular paleo organisms, I guess I could call them, they died. The pelycosaurs, the things that eventually made the mammal-like reptiles and then also eventually made the dinosaurs, they're gone. They couldn't adapt. Now their descendants did. Now, the Crinozoans, your modern day, most of them were wiped out. Not all of them did, because we have these sea flowers, these sea stars. Not a starfish. That's not exactly the same thing. These fleshy, soft filter feeders. The anthozoans, this would be its descendant. They're also tethered. They're very, very similar, the two side by side. Brachiopods, yeah, they turned into clams and oysters. I say that, and there's another one on the next page as well. Graptolites turned into jellyfish. But the bulk of them perished. A few of them survived. And like I said, the organisms that had the ability to move, they're the few that could move to a section of the ocean that had more oxygen available and less heavy metals, which were the poisons present. So that at least a few of them survived so that they could reproduce and then adapt and change into the things that we have today. All right, next one. Ammonoids. You get the pictures coming up. Ammonoids turned into squid and octopus. They obviously don't have those hard shells anymore. Most of them perished. Not all of them, but we would not have their descendants. Gastropods, all these are mollusks, snails, slugs. These were moving more onto land. Yes, they can't dry out or they die, but they had protection. It's these shells. Bryozoans, these are some of our current coral type organisms, also filter feeders or suspension feeders. And then bivalves. This is what you think of as scallops, the very large clams. Well, the giant clam is like bigger than me. It's the largest of them that I know of. I mean, they're like this. They're huge. I would not stick my hand in it if its like mouth, its shell was open. I don't know if I'd be able to get it back out. They're huge. Like they're literally, they're like from here to there, and you're like this big off the ground.
That's really,
That's a giant clam.
well, you said giant, and I didn't know if it was talking about Chromebook.
Oh no, I've never seen one in person, but I mean I've seen like what?
They still have a thing?
Well, they still exist. I've never seen one. I've only been scuba diving once.
Giant clam.
Well, and I did scuba once, and I did scuba diving once. So, but I've never actually seen a giant clam in person. I just know that they exist. Right, so the things that had to stay wet at all times, the things that had to be in the water at all times, those were the ones that had the biggest setback. Not that all of them died, because we wouldn't have the reef plants and organisms that we have now. The land vertebrates, yes, 2/3 of them went extinct, but because their water was more likely to have been filtered by the earth itself, they had less of a concentration of these toxic materials, the acid rain. I mean, like I said, some of them, they went the way of the dodo, but until the dodo did that because it trusted human beings. Or dodo bird. There's one more on here. Okay. The bulk of the amphibians also perished. Whereas reptiles actually fared better. It had to do with the way they reproduce, but it also had to do with the fact that amphibians have to keep their skin damp. Most reptiles don't. A couple of major differences there. One is the amniotic shelled egg and scales. So that helps reptiles be able to, now, they're very specific proto-dinosaurs that made their way through to create the dinosaurs that we know. Obviously, not all amphibians died, or we wouldn't have the few that we have now. In the middle of the Permian, the therapsids were dominant. These were the mammal-like reptiles. They were more advanced than reptiles were. If this extinction would not have happened, those guys would have probably completely pushed the reptiles out. And we would have a lot fewer reptiles than we do today. That's not what happened. The bulk of the therapsids, they died. There's one in particular, looked like a giant hippo that's basically the ancestor of all mammals that made it through. I don't think I mentioned it on here. The archosauriform, this essentially was a gigantic crocodile. That's the lizard. That is the proto-dinosaur that made its way through, that basically evolved into all of the dinosaurs that you think of. turned into birds also. Birds and reptiles are extremely closely related. The birds evolved from specific reptiles. Mammals split way before that. But yeah, in Archosauriform, it's exactly what you, if I had a picture up here, you would be able to see the alligator and the crocodile and the caiman, like that particular body style of reptile very obviously came from that type of proto-dinosaur. But I didn't put that picture up here. Vascular plants. A lot of them survived because they had internal vasculature and it pulled the water up through the ground, which was filtered. Much, much, much fewer toxins. And in the plant fossil record, which I'm not going to go like extremely deep into this, I just don't have the time to. You can see by the fossils that are in specific strata, knowing how old each particular layer of rock was, you do see a very gradual, it's not a sudden change, a very gradual change from the plants of the Permian into the plants of the time of the dinosaurs, which was the Mesozoic. Now, this took 25 million years as far as the plant transfer. So it wasn't like, oh, they're all gone, and then, oh, all of a sudden we have this particular adaptation. You know, flowers came way later. Angiosperms are one of the last developments of the plants. I don't know if they teach you about that in biology. They have to cover evolution in some way, shape, or form of biology. I never taught biology, so I don't know what they do in their cover. They should have, at one point in time, shown you the evolution of the hoof of the horse. I remember that from when I used to do PAX test shutdown stuff forever ago now. Because at one point in time, the horse essentially looked like a big dog. And it had toes, didn't have hooves. Yes. The Eohippus, was about this tall, and it had toes. It was not, it evolved into what we have now. And so we're not 100% sure. What?
I'm bothering.
Did you look up the Eohippus? I told you. You think I'm lying to you?
It looked more like a deer with toes.
I mean, I'm gonna fact check my teacher. Like,
Horses for me.
okay, well they're not like that anymore. Ew, what the heck?
Well, what?
I know. I've been to museums. Okay, anyways.
Miss Ritchie.
What?
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 Bitcoin explosion.
Okay, anyways.
Wait.
These were the contributing factors, y'all, to what, not necessarily in this order, but these were the, boys, these were the contributing factors to what created the largest extinction that we know of, that almost did completely destroy life on this planet. And we're about to talk about each one individually, starting with volcanism, which is related to Pangea. What triggered the warming were the volcano, the million-year-long eruption that was in Siberia, that's known as the Siberian Traps. And this is up in between Russia, like where Russia and Alaska try to come together. That's where Siberia is. This rift, this volcanic area was larger than Europe, and it erupted for literally 1 million years straight at full intensity. Took time for it to stop. This is the ash that fell out from this, was preserved in China's shield, and then we not me, but scientists, we radioisotope the uranium and the lead, and figured out that it did last for at least this long. And like I said, this is at peak intensity. This shows you where the Siberian traps are. There's a documentary that we will watch on Tuesday. I figured out a way to cut about 5 minutes out of it. because it's just a little bit too long. Unfortunately, it is a BBC, it's a British one, so the narrator has a British accent. It is. Okay, that must mean something that I don't know about, so, okay, whatever. British broadcasting. Anyways. I don't even want to know.
I really want to say.
No. I don't want to know. It's apparently it's bad, which means I'll have to write you up for it.
Don't go nowhere.
Okay, I won't. I swear. The Siberian traps, as they're erupting, they're outgassing things like sulfur dioxide, hydrogen sulfide gas, methane, all different kinds of toxic greenhouse gases, lots and lots and lots of carbon dioxide. And what happens is when these gases get in the atmosphere, the way that global warming works, when these gases are in the atmosphere, the sunlight can come through and the heat can come through, but when it tries to be bounced back off the earth and go back into space, it gets stuck. And you have a gradual heating and then more heating and then more heating. And the temperature of the earth rose about 5 degrees Celsius originally from these, which doesn't sound like much. But it was enough to heat up the ocean where it let frozen methane bubble up. That raised the temperature of the earth another 5 degrees Celsius. Now we have a 10 degrees Celsius increase. And it made everything basically turn into a desert. Now, there also was a glaciation that was triggered. Now, 2 different ways. One, when Gondwana land went towards the South Pole, and also when Pangea came together and the Appalachian Mountains went up high enough, you had massive snow accumulation. So you've got all different kinds of things that are going on. You've got acid rain, which made the rivers and the oceans toxic. You've got the planet itself, the atmosphere is, let's see, 10 degrees Celsius is somewhere between 20 and 30 degrees Fahrenheit. I don't remember the actual what the conversion equation is. I really don't. You have glaciations in between this, so the water gets locked in the ice, sea levels fall, so even more damage to things that are dependent on water for survival. I don't want to talk about all of them at the same time. Oh, okay, so I did. I left this one off. So, and we've talked about glaciations and ice ages. If the water is frozen in ice, there's less in the ocean, and your sea levels do drop by hundreds of feet. This is why marine life was just devastated.
I didn't realize I was on the back. I couldn't find it.
You were on the back.
I got another.
Oh, no. That's not good. All right, greenhouse gases, they allow the sunlight and the radiation of the sun to come through. Wants to bounce off the earth. Okay, so whether it be from ice or from land, but it wants to be reflected back. But these gases trap them and they can't escape. More sunlight and more heat is coming through. It bounces off and it can't escape. And we had a very long period of time where the earth was a whole bunch hotter than it used to be. And most of our planet essentially turned into desert. Not all of it, but most of it did. Let me double check. You know what? I have to check on mine too. If you did not see the announcement in Canvas, if you're wanting to retest, if you failed the test, you need to let me know, because in 3rd period, I'm going to be opening that back up. No, we're not through yet. Yes, it's over there. Joseph, Jimmy. All right, that's where I would try, because this one is still up. Let me go back to this.
Wait, was it what you said when you
I'm sorry, what were you asking?
said when you for
The volcanic, at the height of like just spewing out all the lava, it was for a straight million years, at least.
That's a long time.
I know it's a long time. That's why this was so devastating to life on this planet. It came close to destroying the entire ecosystem of this planet.
Wait, so how can it just go on from that long?
Pangea tore in half. The Mid-Atlantic Ridge, the
So
Earth
basically,
split.
It's like a big old hole where we're blind.
A giant fissure. It's just apparently up in Siberia, the crust was thinner, and so that's where the bulk of it tried to come out. And it's like putting a little hole in something that can erode. As it's coming out, it just tore a hole even larger. Somebody in one of my classes asked, would that have changed the way the convection currents work underneath the plates? I honestly have no idea if it did or not. I didn't look that far into it.
What if that made like a sitcom plate or something?
They asked, would it have changed the direction that the plates go? It's possible. I didn't look that far into this. All right, so somebody had mentioned meteor impact. There's a possibility that at the time that our planet was basically tearing itself in half along the Mid-Atlantic Ridge, that there was a very large asteroid that struck. Not know exactly where in Australia this crater is, but it was a 125-mile wide event. And comets don't get that big, so it had to have been an asteroid. This was not an iridium asteroid like the one that took out the dinosaurs between the Cretaceous, or really the Mesozoic, Cenozoic boundary, the KT boundary. But the evidence for impact, they have something called shocked quartz, which is actually really, really pretty. Quartz is normally clear. You can see through it, it's translucent. But shocked quartz almost looks like an oil sheen. It's like rainbow-like looking, almost like bismuth, if you've ever seen the metal bismuth before. That only happens under insane temperature and pressure. Very similar to what happens when the Earth is struck by a rather large extraterrestrial object. Very high levels of nickel. Nickel is normally within the planet. It's not on the surface. Asteroids, some of them are composed of these heavy elements that are in the interior of our Earth. So there's a very good chance that this thing struck during the Permian extinction event, since it took so long for everything to occur. And it helped to amplify all the horrible conditions that were going on the surface of the Earth. Okay, so Pangea came together. We had mountains going up. We had glaciers forming on the south, not at the north. It wasn't up there yet. You had unfavorable weather towards the north and the southern extremes of Pangea, which made the animals not want to live there, and they wanted to go more towards the equator. So now we had more competition for resources. You had new animals and predator-prey type relationships that are going on. That glacier that formed, once the Earth started to warm back up with all of this volcanic global warming, we had sea levels surge. Well, the terrestrial animals, they're not marine, so that pushed them even closer together than they were already. So once again, you had even more fighting for resources, for food. So it wasn't just necessarily, it's not like the lava like burned all the animals to a crisp. That was your global warming. You had glaciations, which melted. You had shrinking land area for the terrestrial organisms. And I mean, some of them just simply starved to death. You had lands that was lush and green, and it turned into desert. We're lucky that it wasn't worse than it was, because like I said, our planet came very close to its entire ecological life system being wiped out. The coral reefs, like I said, they were destroyed again. Obviously, they're not destroyed right now, although some of them are dying. Some of them have died. I don't think it's completely dead, not yet. But they're doing like restoration, that's not the word for it, but they're bringing in the creatures that are necessary and trying to like reseed it. I don't think they call it that either, but it's essentially what they're doing. So I don't know where it is as far as what percentage it is pure white and is dead. And what percentage of it has been restored, or of the parts that have been restored, how many of them are actually thriving. I'm not sure. Let's see. Okay, anoxia. If you did not get this before when we were talking about it a few days ago, that means low oxygen levels. Low oxygen levels means that the organisms that can't move will suffocate. Low oxygen triggers high levels of the heavy toxic metals like lead and mercury. So literally the ocean is poison. One more? Yes, there's one more. How long did it take for the Earth to actually recover once all the chaos stopped? So it took 500,000 years for the Earth to cool off enough, because we had this at least 10 degrees Celsius increase in temperature. And we have records of this in the Arctic and in the Greenland ice cores that we drilled out. Because the oceans were toxic, we had a few marine animals that were left. They tried to adapt to get onto land. This horrendous witch's brew of everything horrible that was going on all at the same time wiped out the bulk of those therapsids, except for that one that I will talk about on Monday, because I did not. I'm going to bring that in on Monday. I knew that I cut some stuff out so that I could push it till next week. But that big hippo-like, big, tough, ugly cow-looking thing turned into all the mammals. Most of the other therapsids, which were way evolutionarily advanced than the reptiles that came through, that crocodile ancestor that turned into all the birds and all the dinosaurs, they wouldn't have been the way that they were. We may not have had a brontosaurus or a T-Rex or an Allosaurus or any of the Triceratops. I don't know all my dinosaurs. But this huge dying, or the great dying that they call it, allowed the dinosaurs to flourish within the Mesozoic. It just took a very long time for the Earth to recover and to look like it did during the Permian. Like I said, that was the first time that our planet was fully populated, where it wasn't just along the oceans and just along the rivers and just along the edges of any other water source. If I need to tell people what they're missing, okay, if you can repost, if somehow you can respond to the announcement in Canvas, or send me a thing to my Gmail. Let me check, because I checked it this morning. We don't have a lot of grades left this 6 weeks. There'll be a couple more daily assignments. Your notes are a test grade. I will have everything together for you on Monday as far as the titles. Where did I put my paper? And the order that we put them in. I don't want anything on paper. I want everything submitted digitally. So if you've been writing them, either take pictures and upload, bless you, the JPEG to your to your Canvas, and then just do it that way. All right, so let me check online one last time. Raylan, Carol, Chase, Colton, Jimmy, Joseph, Lucia, Sarah. I know mine were pretty bad because of all the juniper, the mountain cedar. It always makes me feel like my upper back is being squeezed. Let's see, grades. If you did actually not do the test, I'm going to have to add you onto this too. So that would be Colton. I'm highlighting in my grade book for people that didn't take it. All right, so Alexis, are you wanting to do a retest? Yes. You know what you made on that last test?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So what is still open would be from the 3rd, which is closing today. That's the one on vertebrate evolution. So Alexis, I don't have an opener. Otis, neither part. Kaden, the opener. Esai, the assignment. Taylor, the opener. Erica, the opener. I take them as a daily grade in the progress report and again at 6 weeks. Yes, so they're 2 daily grades each 6 weeks. Hill, the opener. Dylan, the opener. As long as you know everything that you need to do. Colton, both. And then yesterday's, which is open. Alexis, the opener, both parts from Otis. Joseph, the opener, both parts from Caitlin. Kate in the opener. East side, the opener. That's the one from yesterday. Kale, both. Cameron, both. Dylan, the opener, and Colton, both.